Today's story is requested by Corbin. He wanted to know more about the Sayman Medicine Company, and after I did a quick search, it looked like it was going to be a fun story. So let's get started on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. This is a true rags to riches story. Thomas Mark Sayman was born in 1853 in Indiana. He was married twice and had 4 kids with the first marriage and 1 kid with the second marriage, from what I can tell. His obituary gives a little idea about his life and personality. So it says, he ran away from home when he was 9 years old. He didn't have a penny to his name, just the clothes on his back, and he was barefoot. He joined the circus. P.T. Barnum was mentioned, along with another circus, so he didn't work for just one. He was an errand boy, water boy, and a helper for the circus for about 9 years. At some point, when he was about 14, he returned home, where he was met with a strapping. He decided to leave again, never again having contact with his father. At age 18, he decided that he needed an education. So he left the circus and he went to a medical college for 4 or 6 years. 2 different stories say 2 different things. He worked at night to pay for his college. The name of the school isn't known, nor whether he earned an actual degree. After that, he drifted around in Texas. And while he was in Texas, he was dabbling with different herbs and plants for their medicinal properties. He became known as a medicine man while he was traveling with the circuses again. He learned how to give a good spiel to the crowds. His medicine business started to pick up. Traveling with the circuses, he ended up all over the country advertising Sayman's soap and remedies. So I have a question. If he's traveling, how does he have the means to produce his products without a factory of some kind? Anyway, continuing on, it says he really did well with his soaps, and each bar of soap bears his photo on them. He would often bring testimonials from important people on how great they thought his soap was and how they used it. It says in the 1890s he got himself a small factory in Carthage, Missouri. He soon outgrew it and he had to move to St. Louis. And unless I'm reading it wrong, it looks like he had a 3rd factory which was bigger still. So apparently there was a large glass case inside this factory. The glass case contained a stuffed white horse. Now, this picture doesn't look like he's white, but multiple stories say that he's a white horse. So this horse was very important to him, as it was the horse that pulled the wagon that he sold his medicines from very early on. For 10 years, Sayman and his family lived on the 8th floor of the factory, from 1915 to 1925. By this time, he only had 1 daughter left at home, Dorothy Jean, from his second marriage. Her nickname was Doe Jean. He had their factory apartment fitted with a little playground, a fountain, and a wading pool for her. On the roof of the factory, he had a shooting gallery. This says that he frequently paid out rewards for men who killed bandits, giving them $25, $50, or even as much as $500. There's a story that says that he used to pass out pistols to his employees in the morning, and then he would collect them each evening. He gave generously to charities. In 1928, he purchased some land in the Ozarks, Missouri, and he donated it as a state park. At the time of his death, his estate was estimated about $10 million. This says in the past 2 years, a well-known company offered him $5 million for his company, and he turned it down. It says during the Depression, he was also offered $10 million, and he declined that offer as well. He was known to carry a .38 caliber revolver, which he nicknamed Old Becky Trueheart. In his older years, he walked with a cane as well as Old Becky Trueheart. Apparently, he was known to be both a very nice man and very bullheaded. He was in court a lot, which we'll get to, and it says that he used to sometimes testify on his own behalf and won. I knew this was going to be a fun one. So that was just the stories in his obituary. So let's get into some of the paperwork. Here's the 1880 census. He's 25 years old with his 22-year-old wife, Rosa, and his new baby daughter. This says that he's an auction merchant. 1889, we had the pleasure of meeting T.M. Sayman, who is in the interest of the vegetable soap, which he manufactures from what is called a soap plant. He has one of the finest buggy and team we have ever seen. It's stabled at the barn of C.B. Lewis and is worth going to see. 1890. Sayman reports another full hand arrives at his home to assist in the making of soap. A boy 10.5 pounds. Now, I've never heard that term before, so does that mean he's 10.5 years old? I don't know. The following month, this soap is growing in popular favor and sales are increasing at such a rate that an increase in manufacture is contemplated in the immediate future. 1 week later, Sayman has leased the Simon's property on Oak Street. 1891, he's putting on a show tonight. It says, "Come everybody and bring the ladies. Valuable presents, silverware, groceries, and provisions given away at each performance." 1893, newspaper ad. Sayman's Vegetable Wonder Soap. Cures all forms of skin and scalp diseases, from sores to poison ivy. Or you can get some Sayman's vegetable liniment. If it fails to cure your rheumatism or all these other issues, your money will be refunded. 2 months later, Sayman is arrested. It says Constable Aldrum proceeded to the residence of Sayman and placed the well-known soap manufacturer under arrest for receiving and concealing stolen goods. A lady reported him to authorities after Sayman came to her and asked her not to prosecute a Mr. Allen for stealing her jewelry, and offered her $50 for that stolen jewelry. Mr. Sayman stoutly denies the allegations, and he said all he was trying to do was help his poor friend, Mr. Allen, out of a scrape. Later in the year, 1893, Sayman throws a concert consisting of comedians, singers, dancers, sketch artists, acrobats, leapers, and tumblers on stage. Seating capacity is 1,500 people. Sounds like he's putting his circus skills to good work. And I love his mustache. Early 1894, Sayman is giving nightly entertainments in the Opera House. It is said to be first-class entertainment and is crowded every night. 1900 census. Sayman is 46 now. No wife listed, although it lists his marriage status as he's married for 18 years. The kids are living with him. His occupation says manufacturer of patent medicines. 1903, Mrs. Helen Hampton, a music teacher, charged Sayman with striking her. She bit his thumb, and she's at the hospital suffering from bruises. This one says she bit him and he, in turn, pushed her off some steps. 2 days later, he's in trouble again. His ex-wife, Rose, applied for a warrant against her divorced husband. She says he's been writing her letters threatening their oldest son, T.M. Sayman Jr., who's employed at Majestic Range Company, that he objects to his son using the name T.M. Sayman, saying it was copyrighted. A source online said that in the divorce papers, he apparently threatened to kill his ex-wife. So we've got some Jerry Springer show going on here. By the way, he was fined for that lady that he pushed down the steps. 1905, Sayman was in critical condition after falling down a 20-foot elevator shaft. An hour and a half later, someone found him unconscious, groaning, and covered in mud at the bottom of the hatchway. Once he was at the hospital, it's learned that he was struck on the back of the head, which in itself should have killed him, but he had a thick wool hat on. Apparently, robbers were prowling around the factory when he saw a flitting figure. He whipped out his pistol, and he's an excellent shot, but he was struck from behind. He suffered a spinal injury and internal injuries. He wasn't given good odds of surviving. At the end of the story, it says that Sayman is actually suing the lady that he pushed down the steps $20,000 in damages for slander. Now, a few times I came across accounts of him either taking the handle of his gun, whacking himself in the head, or he would challenge strangers to headbutts for bets, sometimes up to any amount. It turns out he ended up with a metal plate in his head, and I'm assuming from this incident. The following year, he's back at it again. He's fined $5 for disturbing the peace. Sayman threw rubbish on his neighbor's stable roof. When they argued, Sayman called his neighbor an Irish terrier. Sayman denied throwing rubbish on his roof, but he paid the fine. A couple years later, he ticked off a bunch of his female employees. They went on strike after he visited them while they were working, and he had remarked that they remind him of, quote, a crowd of damned rats. We're up to 1915. Sayman is now 62 years old. He's getting married to an employee of his. She's 35. The good news is that they do stay together until he dies. It says the address of his home is 4603 Westminster Place, which is this yellow house. That's an interesting house for a millionaire. 1920 census, Sayman is living with his new wife and their daughter, Dorothy Jean. In 1928, here's where he bought 2,400 acres of the Ozarks and he donated it for a state park. He says, "It is my sincere hope that the people of Missouri will derive from the roaring river the same great pleasure which I feel in making this gift to our state." 1930 city directory shows Sayman president of the company. He'd be 77 now. His wife is vice president. And this says that he's also got an investment company which he's president and she's vice president of. The address shows 2117 Franklin, which I guess that isn't a road name anymore, but Google brings me here to this corner. Apparently the factory that was here burned down and eventually was torn down. 1932 wanted ad states, now remember this is in the Great Depression. It says, "Why fold up your hands in the midst of plenty and have that downcast look on your face when you could easily make $5 to $25 a day selling eagerly sought for household necessities?" 1935, Sayman is 81 now, walking with a cane, and he was in court where 3 police court convictions were dismissed against him from the past few months. One being that he got in an altercation with Mr. and Mrs. Talbot, saying Sayman knocked down Mr. Talbot and struck Mrs. Talbot in the chin, drawing his revolver on her. "Why, you dirty liar!" cries Sayman. The following month he's in court again, this time a $1,000 fine for mislabeling his goods. Sayman paid the fine with $1 and $2 bills. The article talks about his products and what they're made of. 1937, this is the year he dies. Well, in January, it says, about every 60 to 90 days, the papers give an account of some new escapade of Dr. T.M. Sayman. Well, this time, Sayman was driving an automobile that collided with Mr. Keetel's car, so Keetel is suing Sayman for $7,500. Now, Sayman is quoted as saying at some point, he says, "When a man gets a few $1,000,000, everyone tries to sue it away from him." In September 1937, Sayman dies at the age of 83, a few days short from his 84th birthday. It says he died in his sleep. His home was at 5399 Lindell Boulevard. Here's what it looks like. I looked it up on Zillow, and it says it's over 5,000 square feet and only 1 bathroom, built in 1906. Soon after his death, his youngest daughter, Dorothy Jean, comes back after being in Europe for some time. She's set to inherit over $1 million. Estimates of his estate vary between $2 million and $10 million. Apparently, his first 5 children from his first wife were all cut off from his will. A few months later, Sayman's wife gets sued for crashing her automobile into another car, injuring Mr. Pellerito. He's suing her for $7,500. The Christmas after Sayman died, the paper says that the company will continue on. Mrs. Sayman is in the paper. She's been appointed chairman of the Symphony Society Board. She was also part of the Women's War Savings Staff Committee, where she had gatherings at her home. Dorothy Jean got married just before the start of World War II to a very respectable lieutenant in the military. He was a spy, among other things, and fun fact, he was considered the inspiration for the character James Bond. Isn't that interesting? I found ads during World War II for the soap and the salve. You can sort of see the packaging for them here. Here's what the soap packaging looked like in 1966. In 1969, Luella sold the business to Carson Chemical Company. They say they will continue the manufacture of the soap. 5 years later, Mrs. Sayman died at the age of 97. She outlived her husband by 40 years. This 1981 article says that Carson Chemical Company sold the Sayman soap to Goody's Manufacturing Company 2 years ago. 1986, you can still buy it. 1996, you can still buy it. In fact, you can still buy it today. Amazon has it. Does it remotely resemble the product from 100 years ago? I doubt it. Now, I found this online, this building at 21st and Locust. It's still standing, and I guess there's a discussion currently on what to do with this building. This says that Sayman actually never used this building. Now, there's a bunch of examples for Sayman products online. Here's a liniment bottle, and here's the screw top bottle of the liniment. And here's the bar soap named Dojine. And here's one of many free samples that he was known to give out all the time. Here's a product named Sayman's Wonder Herbs, and it looks like they're pills or pellets of some kind because it says there's 100 doses in there. And here's two products I never saw information for. One is called Tasty Drinks, which was a concentrate, and it made tutti frutti drinks. And apparently he made some spices at one point. Interesting. And that is going to be it for this one. What an interesting guy. I had fun with this one. I hope you guys did too. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.